The sky was still pale when the first hint of morning seeped through the soft curtains, tinting the room in a gentle wash of rose-gold light. It was the kind of dawn that didn't rush, the kind that breathed slowly, content to take its time. Everything felt unusually still, as if the world too was pausing to honor the new beginning forming in the quiet of that room. Adam woke first. He didn't move. For a full minute he simply lay there, eyes half open, breathing in the scent of the woman beside him, the woman who was no longer just his partner, but his wife. The word rested on his chest like a warm blanket, both grounding and unreal at the same time. My wife. He repeated it silently, slowly, as if absorbing the truth of it cell by cell. She was curled against him, her face soft with sleep, one hand resting lightly over his heart as though it had found its place during the night and refused to let go. Her hair, slightly messy from the pillow, brushed his chin. He felt a small tug of joy, the kind that wasn't loud but deep, deep enough to control his entire heartbeat. He didn't remember falling asleep. The previous night blurred in his memory like a warm sunset fading gradually into night. They hadn't done anything dramatic or wild, no drunken chaos, no rushed passion, just closeness, just hands and breaths and whispered words that didn't need to impress anyone, just the quiet joining of two people who had promised an entire lifetime only hours ago. He could still hear her laughter from the reception, still feel her hand squeezing his during their first dance, still see the way her eyes had softened right before she whispered her vows. He didn't even realize he was smiling until she shifted slightly against him. She stirred, her eyelashes fluttering like delicate wings before she blinked into the gentle light. For a moment she didn't speak, she just looked at him. Not with surprise, not with shyness, but with the serene recognition of someone who woke exactly where she wanted to be. "Good morning," she whispered, her voice thick with sleep. Adam felt something inside him loosen, melt, expand. "Good morning, love." She let her head sink a little deeper into his shoulder. "How long have you been awake?" "A little while. Didn't want to move. You look too peaceful." She smiled slowly, and he watched the expression grow like dawn on her face. "I feel peaceful," she murmured, "like everything is finally quiet." He understood exactly what she meant. He felt it too, the strange, soothing silence that follows a whirlwind. The wedding had been beautiful, joyful, emotional, but this moment of waking up beside each other as husband and wife, it had a different kind of beauty. Her fingers traced gentle circles over his chest, absent-minded and intimate. He captured her hand and lifted it to his lips, pressing a kiss to her wedding ring, something he had dreamed about doing for longer than he admitted aloud. She watched him, her eyes softening even more. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Being married, I mean." Adam breathed out. "Thoughtful. It feels like I finally brought you home." Her eyes glimmered. "Your turn," he said quietly. "How does it feel for you?" She hesitated, not because she didn't know, but because she wanted to say it right. Her gaze wandered up to the ceiling for a moment before returning to him. "It feels like I woke up in the right life. Like everything that hurt, everything that went wrong before, it finally makes sense. Because it led me here." Adam's throat tightened. He didn't speak. Words in that instant were too small. Instead, he pulled her closer, enveloping her fully in his arms. She melted instantly, as though she had been waiting for that exact embrace all along. They stayed like that for a long time, bodies warmed by the shared blanket, the faint morning breeze slipping through the window, and the steady mix of breath and heartbeat becoming a quiet soundtrack to their first married morning. Her thoughts, soft, unspoken, warm. She traced the outline of his jaw with her eyes, the familiar shape she had memorized long before the wedding, the one that now somehow meant even more. He looks different today, she thought. Not physically. No, it was something else, something deeper, something she felt rather than saw. Maybe it was the slight change in his posture, the ease in his gaze, the warmth that seemed to live permanently in his smile. Or maybe it was simply the knowledge that last night, in front of everyone, he had vowed to walk beside her forever. Her heart fluttered the way it had when he said, "I do." She hadn't expected the words to hit her so powerfully. They were words she had heard in movies, in stories, in other people's weddings, but hearing them from him had felt like receiving the missing pages of her life, the ones where everything finally aligned. She touched the curve of his shoulder lightly, admiring the simple miracle of waking up beside him without worrying about anything, not time, not distance, not the future. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting her thoughts drift. She remembered the way he had held her during their first dance, not tightly, not dramatically, but securely. He didn't lead her with force, he led her with presence. And that had been the theme of their entire relationship. Adam didn't overwhelm, didn't pressure. He simply stayed. And that, for her, had been everything. My wife. She tested the word in her mind, fighting back a smile. It felt too big and too perfect at the same time. When she opened her eyes again, he was still watching her. In that way he often did, as if trying to record her expression so he could store it somewhere private. "You're staring," she murmured. "I am, and I'll probably keep doing it." She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that bubbled up only when she felt fully safe. Adam's thoughts. Quiet. Honest. Full. He studied her face, savoring the small details he loved too much, the gentle crease under her eye when she was sleepy, the way her nose scrunched ever so slightly when she smiled, the soft curve of her lips that always felt like an invitation to lean closer. He brushed a thumb over her cheek. "You look happy," he whispered. "I am," she said simply. "Are you?" He inhaled slowly, the kind of breath that carried truth. "I've never been this happy, not even close." And he meant it. There was something about waking up with her hand on his chest, the blanket tangled between their legs, the scent of her perfume from last night still lingering faintly in the sheets, that spurred, "You are exactly where you're meant to be." He leaned forward and kissed her forehead. She closed her eyes, sinking into the touch as though it was the most natural thing in the world. "Do you want to stay like this for a while?" she whispered. "Yes," I answered instantly. "I want this moment to last." The room still held remnants of the previous night, the slightly scattered bouquet on the bedside table, a half-finished glass of water, her earrings placed carefully beside his cufflinks, their clothes, neatly folded but with a softness that suggested they had been removed slowly, thoughtfully. Outside, the world was beginning its routine. A distant bird called out. Somewhere down the street, a car door closed. But inside the room, time moved gently, almost respectfully. The sunlight warmed the sheets, highlighting the intertwined shapes of their bodies beneath the blanket. She shifted again, this time turning onto her side to face him fully. He mirrored his movement automatically as though they had been doing this all their lives. His fingers brushed her waist, hers trailed along his arm. their legs tangled again naturally, as though they had always fit this way. "You know what I was thinking?" she asked softly. "What?" "That last night felt like the end of a long chapter and the beginning of something new." Adam smiled. "A good chapter?" "The best," she said. "But this new one feels calmer, deeper, like we don't have to rush anywhere." "We don't," he agreed. "We have the rest of our lives." She exhaled shakily at the sound of that, the rest of our lives, letting it wrap around her like a warm shawl. A pause. A kiss. The light outside grew a little brighter, warming the room with a gentle glow. It felt like the sun was rising slowly on purpose, as though it, too, didn't want to disturb the peaceful stillness that wrapped around them. She was still nestled against Adam, but gradually the whisper of hunger, the faint stiffness in her body from lying too long, and the soft urge to stretch made her shift slightly. He loosened his arms around her, but didn't let go, merely adjusting enough so she could stretch her leg without breaking the closeness between them. "Do you want breakfast?" he murmured, his fingers absent-mindedly tracing the curve of her shoulder. She hummed, eyes still half closed. "Eventually." He smiled. "Eventually works for me." Silence settled again, but this time it was comfortable, filled with a shared understanding, a shared softness, a silence that wasn't empty. It was full, full of last night's warmth, of the promises made, of the knowledge that this was their first morning of many. Her thoughts drifted back to tiny moments from the wedding. The way his eyes had watered, almost imperceptibly, when she walked down the aisle. The steady pressure of his hands when he held her during their vows. The way he kept watching her, even during the noise of the reception, as though she was the only place his attention naturally returned to. She felt her chest swell with emotion again, not the overwhelming kind that brought tears, but the quiet, glowing kind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, watching the faint smile forming on her lips. "You," she admitted. "Do I get the details?" he teased. She opened her eyes, letting them rest on him. "I was thinking about you during the wedding, how you looked at me, how you held my hands, how you whispered, 'It's okay, I've got you,' right before the vows started." Adam exhaled softly, remembering the moment. He had whispered it into her ear because she had looked nervous, not dramatically so, but he had seen the way her fingers tightened around the bouquet. "I meant it," he said quietly. "I'll always mean it." She smiled, her gaze growing tender. "I know." Adam brushed a strand of hair away from her face, letting his fingers linger. "What else?" She hesitated, not out of shyness, but because the next thought was softer, more vulnerable. "I was thinking about how safe I felt. Not just last night, but the whole day. Even when I was overwhelmed or tired or emotional, you made me feel grounded." He swallowed. She always had a way of turning emotion into something so clear, so honest. "I was just trying to take care of you," he said simply. "I know." Her voice softened. "That's what I love about you." He felt something warm unfurl inside him, a mixture of pride, gratitude, and a quiet ache that came from being truly seen. Adam's thoughts, calm, quiet, full of wonder. He watched the way her face glowed under the morning light, the way her eyes softened with every word she spoke. He had always loved looking at her, loved her expressions, her laughter, her gentleness. But today there was something different. Maybe it was the thin gold band on her finger catching the sunlight. Maybe it was the knowledge that they didn't have to say goodbye later. Maybe it was just the depth of last night still lingering in his bones. But she looked different, not changed, but his, in a way that was new and ancient at once. He felt proud, in a quiet way, not of owning her, but of belonging with her. Proud that she trusted him enough to stand beside him for the rest of her life. Proud of the life they were starting. "You're thinking very hard," she teased lightly, touching his cheek with her fingertips. I caught her hand, pressing it gently against his jaw. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am." She rolled her eyes, playfully, though her smile betrayed her. "You're very dramatic in the mornings." "Only because I woke up next to my wife," he said, his voice dipping into that low tone that always made her breath catch. Her heart fluttered, not out of surprise, but because the way he said "wife" felt sincere, reverent. "Say it again," she murmured before she could stop herself. He leaned closer, lips near her forehead. "My wife." She closed her eyes, letting the words sink into her skin. A slow start to a new life. She finally pushed herself up, sitting halfway against the headboard. The blanket slid to her lap, exposing the delicate lace of her nightwear. Adam's eyes softened as he watched her adjust her hair, her movements slow and sleepy. He sat up too, close enough that their shoulders brushed. "We should probably get up," she said, though she made no move to actually do so. "We should," Adam echoed, equally unmotivated. "You're ridiculous." "Yes," he agreed. "I'm hungry." "Same." "And thirsty." "Same." "And still not getting up," she sighed. Adam chuckled, leaning back against the pillows. "I can go get breakfast, room service, or I can make something." She turned her head, eyebrow raised. "You want to cook on our first morning?" "I'd burn toast for you," he said with a straight face. She burst into laughter, a soft, warm sound that filled the room like sunlight. "You don't need to burn anything for me. We can order breakfast," she said, still smiling. He nodded, but he didn't reach for his phone. Instead, he gently took her hand and brought it to his lips again, kissing the back of it slowly. "Adam, I know I'm doing it too much." "No," she said softly. "Just don't stop." His eyes met hers, and for a moment neither of them spoke. The air thickened, not with heat, but with affection, deep and steady. She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. The light brushing of their rings made a soft metallic whisper. Her thumb traced the back of his hand gently. "It still feels unreal." "In a good way?" he asked. "The best way." He exhaled with relief. "Good. I want you to feel chosen. Every day." She tilted her face up toward him. "I do." Memories from last night, soft and slow. Her mind wandered back to the moment after the reception, when the two of them had finally escaped the noise and celebration. She remembered how Adam had wrapped his arm around her waist, helping her out of her gown with patient hands, taking his time with every button as though each one mattered. He had kissed every inch of tension off her shoulders. He had held her like she was fragile even though she wasn't. He had whispered, "It's okay. Tell me if anything is too much." And she had whispered back, "You're perfect." Last night wasn't about passion, not the overwhelming kind. It was about closeness, about feeling safe, cherished, seen. Adam was thinking about it too. He could still feel the way she had held on to him, not with urgency, but with trust. He remembered the way she had breathed his name against his skin, quiet and warm. He brushed his knuckles along her arm. "You were beautiful last night." She looked up. "Last night or today?" "Both," he said without hesitation. "You're sweet," she said shyly. "I'm honest," he corrected softly. Planning the day. The slow, married version. "What do you want to do today?" she asked. "Anything. Nothing. Be with you," he said. She shook her head, amused. "That's not a plan." "It is," Adam insisted. "It's a very good plan." She laughed again, nudging his arm. "Okay, but realistically." "Realistically," Adam said, pretending to think deeply, "I'd like to stay in bed with you for at least another hour, then get breakfast, then maybe shower together." Her cheeks warmed. "You're not subtle." "I'm married," he replied confidently. "Subtlety is no longer required." She hid her face against his shoulder, giggling. "You're unbelievable." He kissed the crown of her head. "You married me anyway." "Yes," she whispered. "I did. And I'm very grateful." She looked up again, her eyes soft. "So am I." A moment of quiet gratitude. She slipped her fingers through his, intertwining them slowly. "Adam," she said after a moment, her voice gentle, almost fragile. "Yes, love? Thank you for yesterday."
"Room service?" he asked softly. She nodded immediately, her head still resting on his shoulder. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "Coffee," she said firmly. Adam laughed. "That's very specific. And pancakes." "Okay. And fruit." He raised an eyebrow. "Are you ordering breakfast or a buffet?" "Yes," she declared confidently. Adam shook his head with a smile, dialing the number. She watched him as he spoke. The calm tone of his voice, the relaxed slope of his shoulders, the easy way he said, "My wife would like," as though he'd been saying those words for years. Her heart fluttered at the way he said, "My wife," so naturally, like it fit perfectly inside his mouth. When he hung up, he caught her staring. "What?" he asked, smiling slightly. "You said, 'my wife,' like you were born saying it." She murmured. "Did it sound good?" He teased. "Very," she admitted. He reached over, cupping her cheek gently. "Good. I plan to use it every chance I get." She leaned into his palm, savoring the warmth. "I like the sound of that." Adam brushed his thumb along her lower lip, not with intention, but with quiet affection. "You know," she added softly, "you look really calm today. Peaceful." He softened. "I feel peaceful. With you, I always do." A slow morning conversation. She shifted slightly, tilting her body so she could face him fully. He mirrored the movement, their legs brushing under the blanket. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "What was your favorite moment yesterday?" Adam didn't answer right away. He took a deep breath, his gaze drifting briefly toward the window as he tried to find the exact memory. Then he smiled, a small, warm, nostalgic smile. "When the doors opened," he said quietly, "and I saw you walking toward me." She blinked, emotion gathering in her chest. "Really?" He nodded. "I'd imagined it 100 times, and still, nothing prepared me for it. You looked like everything I'd ever hoped for, and a little more." Her throat tightened. "Adam." He reached for her hand. "What about you?" She sighed softly. "It was after the vows, when everyone cheered. You looked at me like you were so sure, like you weren't afraid at all." "I wasn't," he said simply. She smiled, a little emotional, "but I was. Just a little." Adam's expression softened immediately. Were you scared of me or us? No, she said quickly. Not us, never us. Just, she paused, gathering her thoughts, scared of the moment, the weight of it, the meaning. But you grounded me. Just being near you, it helped. Adam brushed her hair behind her ear. I'm glad I could do that. You always do, she whispered. Adam's quiet observations. He watched her closely as she spoke, the sincerity in her eyes, the honesty in her voice. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't embellishing anything. She was simply telling the truth in that soft, vulnerable way she had. Sometimes he wondered how he had gotten so lucky, how someone like her, gentle, thoughtful, brave in quiet ways, had chosen him. He reached out, touched her wrist lightly. You know what I noticed yesterday? What? You kept looking for me. She froze for a moment, then smiled. Was that obvious? Yes. He chuckled. Whenever someone hugged you or laughed with you or dragged you to talk to a relative, the moment they let go, your eyes came back to me. She felt her cheeks warm. I didn't even realize. I did, he said softly, and it made me feel needed. Her chest softened. You are needed. Adam's eyes held hers for a long moment, warmth deepening there. The little moment that meant everything. He shifted a little closer, the blanket rustling between them. Can you my favorite small moment? He asked. Small moment? He nodded. When you took off your heels and sighed in relief, and you leaned on my shoulder without thinking. She laughed softly. You notice that? I notice everything about you. Her breath hitched again, a familiar flutter rising low in her stomach. And then, he continued, when we were alone in the room last night, the way you looked at me right before you said goodnight. She blinked, surprised. You mean before we kissed? No, he said, shaking his head gently. After that, when you finally lay down and looked at me like you felt safe. Her eyes softened. I did. He brushed his fingers lightly along her jaw. I'll spend my whole life making sure you always do. Room service interrupts. A soft knock at the door made both of them startle slightly. She laughed quietly. Breakfast. Adam slid out of bed, the morning light catching the definition of his back and shoulders. She watched him for a moment, admiring the way he moved, steady, unhurried, comfortable in their shared space. He put on a robe. Before opening the door, she pulled the blanket up to her chest and tucked her legs beneath her as she listened to Adam thanking the staff in his warm, polite tone. When he turned around, balancing the tray, she reached out her arms with mock helplessness. Help me! I'm starving! He placed the tray on the bed, adjusting it carefully so it wouldn't spill. You're adorable when you're hungry, he teased. Careful, I'll steal your pancakes. He laughed and leaned over to kiss her forehead. You can have all the pancakes you want. Breakfast in bed. They ate slowly, comfortably, sharing bites, passing plates back and forth, wiping crumbs off each other's lips with gentle fingers. She fed him a piece of fruit, and he caught her fingertips with his lips, making her blush. You're impossible, she whispered. I'm happy, he corrected. She poured him coffee, and he added sugar to hers without asking, because he already knew how she liked it. They talked about little things, guests from yesterday, funny moments, how tired their feet had become from dancing. There was no heaviness in their conversation, no pressure. Just the light, married kind of talking that came naturally in warm, slow mornings. I want to remember this, she said suddenly, looking at him. Remember what? This exact morning, the way it feels. Adam nodded, his expression soft and full. Me too. A moment of shared stillness. When the plates were mostly empty and the coffee cups half full, Adam lay back against the headbed again. She shifted closer, curling into his side, her cheek resting against his chest. He wrapped an arm around her, his hand resting lightly on her hip. "This feels like the beginning," she whispered. "It is," he murmured, kissing the top of her head. "I like beginnings with you." Adam closed his eyes for a moment, letting her words wash over him. "Then let's make a good one." Her thoughts, a soft realization. As she lay against him, she felt a small truth settle quietly inside. This was the life she had always hoped existed somewhere. Not the wedding, not the rings, but this morning, this slow, warm, gentle intimacy. This man beside her, looking at her like she was the softest part of his world. This safety, this ease, this tenderness. She breathed in Adam's scent, feeling her heart swell. "I still can't believe we're married," she whispered. Adam tilted her chin up with 2 fingers. "Believe it," he said softly, "because I'm not going anywhere." Her eyes glistened. "Good." He kissed her gently, soft lips, slow pressure, warm breath, the kind of kiss that said everything without speaking. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "I'm happy." Adam touched her cheek. "So am I."
Adam's fingers were brushing idle patterns along her arm as she lay against him. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her breathing matched his perfectly, as if they were syncing without trying. "I never realized," she murmured quietly, "how peaceful the world can feel when there's nothing to rush for." Adam nodded, his fingers pausing briefly before continuing their soft tracing. "It feels like time slows down for us." She shifted her cheek slightly against his chest. "I want to remember this exact feeling, like the world is far away." Adam's hand covered hers gently. "We'll make more days like this," he whispered. She smiled. "Promise?" "Promise." The way he looks at her. After a moment, she sat up just a little, enough to look at him properly. His hair was messy from sleep, his jaw slightly shadowed, his eyes warm and unguarded, the way he only ever looked when he was completely at ease. He caught her staring again. "What are you looking at?" he asked softly. "You," she said simply. He let out a quiet laugh, sliding one hand behind her back. "You stare at me a lot." "I'm memorizing you," she replied, her voice soft but sure. His laughter faded into something deeper, more emotional. "Why?" "So I don't forget this morning, or how you look at me." Adam's thumb brushed the edge of her jaw. "I look at you like you're my whole world," he said quietly. "Because you are." Her breath trembled. "Say that again." "You're my whole world," he repeated, slower this time, letting each word sink into her skin. She inhaled shakily and touched his cheek, her thumb brushing the corner of his mouth. "Adam." He leaned into her hand, eyes softening even more. "Yeah? Sometimes I think you feel more than you show." He blinked, surprised at the accuracy. "Maybe. You don't have to hide it with me." Adam exhaled slowly, as though something inside him had just been understood. "I know," he said softly. "With you, I don't feel the need to hold anything in." She lay down again, sliding into his arms naturally. He held her close, adjusting the blanket around them. "Can I tell you something?" he said after a long pause. She nodded, lifting her head slightly to meet his eyes. "I was nervous last night," he said quietly. "You were? You didn't look it. I didn't want you to think I was unsure. I wasn't unsure of you. I never have been. I was just overwhelmed.
in a good way, because last night felt important. She smiled gently. It was important. I kept thinking, I want her to feel safe. I want her to feel loved. I want her to know I'm here. Her fingers brushed over his chest, calming the tremor in his voice. I did feel all of that, she whispered. Every bit of it. A breath of relief slipped from his lips. Good, he said. Her thoughts, a quiet realization. She touched the gold band on her finger, twisting it gently as she thought. It was strange, not heavy, not unfamiliar, just meaningful. A small piece of metal that changed nothing and everything all at once. Do you like the ring? Adam asked softly, noticing her gaze. She looked at it again. I love it, but I love what it means more. And what does it mean? He asked, though he already knew. That you chose me, and I chose you. Adam leaned in, kissing her softly. I'll choose you every day, he murmured against her lips. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the words settle inside her. Me too. A light-hearted moment to break the emotion. She suddenly laughed softly, causing Adam to look at her with raised eyebrows. What? He asked, amused. We're being very serious this morning. He grinned. We're married. Serious is allowed. But I like it when you're playful, too, she teased. Adam rolled slightly towards her, a spark in his eyes. Playful? Before she could respond, he gently poked her waist. She gasped and grabbed his wrist. Adam, don't you dare! He smiled. Too late! He tickled her lightly, just enough to make her squirm and laugh, but not enough to overwhelm her. She grabbed his shoulders, trying to wriggle away, but he held her securely, not forcefully, just in that teasing, loving way. Okay, she squealed, breathless. Stop. He stopped immediately, resting his forehead against hers. There, he murmured, a smile. She panted softly, cheeks pink, eyes shining. You're impossible. And you love it, he whispered. She kissed him in response, a quick, soft, affectionate kiss. The decision to rise, slowly. After a long stretch of cuddling, she finally pushed herself up. We should get out of bed, she said reluctantly. Adam didn't move. Why? It's almost noon. So? We can't spend the entire day in bed. Why not? He challenged. She threw him a look. You'll get nothing done. I'm not trying to get anything done, he said, pulling her back gently. I'm trying to love my wife. She froze at the sentence, at the tenderness, at the warmth, at the way he said it like a simple truth. Come back here, he murmured, brushing his fingers down her arm. Eventually she gave in, collapsing softly beside him again. I sighed. You win. I usually do. She playfully elbowed him. Don't be smug. He pulled her closer, kissing her temple. Never when it comes to you. Shower steam and soft moments. Eventually, after another long stretch of quiet, she said, Fine, let's get up, but only if we shower together. Adam's brows lifted. Is that a bribe? Yes, I accept. They slipped out of bed together, the carpet soft beneath their feet. Adam reached for her hand as they walked into the bathroom, a simple, instinctive gesture. Steam filled the glass enclosure as the warm water poured down. They stepped inside slowly, letting the heat wrap around them. It wasn't passionate, not urgent, but close, intimate. His hands moved gently across her back. Her fingers traced his shoulders softly. They washed each other's hair, laughing when the soap almost dripped into her eyes, and whispering small things that only married couples whispered. You're beautiful like this, Adam murmured, tucking wet strands of hair behind her ear. She smiled shyly. You always say that. Because it's always true. She rested her forehead against his chest as the water poured gently down their skin. "Thank you for this morning." He pressed a soft kiss to her wet hair. "Thank you. It's the best morning of my life." The day begins. Soft, slow, married. When they stepped out, wrapped in towels, the world outside the bathroom felt fresh again, like everything had been quietly reset. She slipped into a light dress, Adam into a simple shirt and sweats. "You look comfortable," she said with a smile. "I'm with you. I'm always comfortable." He watched her gently as she dried her hair, the way she hummed without realizing it, the small sway of her body, domestic, warm, effortlessly beautiful. "Hey," he said softly from behind her. She turned. "I love you," he said simply. She stepped into his arms. "I love you too." A slow afternoon begins. They open the curtains fully, letting sunlight flood the room. The world looked bright, new, golden. "What do you want to do today?" she asked. Adam didn't hesitate. "Spend it with you," she laughed softly. "Specific?" "Fine," he said, wrapping an arm around her waist. "I want to walk with you, talk with you, maybe nap again, maybe watch a movie, maybe just exist together." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "That sounds perfect." "It will be," he murmured, "because it's with you." Final quiet thoughts, the day after becoming one. She took his hand and led him to the window. They stood there, side by side, fingers intertwined, looking out at the bright world that waited for them. "It feels like a new chapter," she whispered. "It is," Adam said. She turned to him, eyes soft, voice gentle. "Are you ready for it?" Adam cupped her face, his thumbs brushing her cheeks with a tenderness that made her heart swell. "I've been ready since the day I met you," he said. She smiled, slow, emotional, full. "Me too." He kissed her then, not the passionate kind, not the urgent kind, but the kind that felt like a vow spoken without words. "Every morning with you, every beginning, every quiet moment, every day forward." And as the